G'day everyone, it's Mayday here from YNV Health and Wellness. And tonight I'm joined with another great friend of mine from the health and wellness industry. I've known this person for quite some time now. He's a men's confidence coach. Tonight I'm joined with Mark Vaughan. Mark, thank you for joining me tonight. We've been speaking about catching up and doing a Zoom together for some time now, and now you're here. How you
Yeah,
been?
yeah, good, mate. And how about you?
Really good, mate. Really good, really
Good.
good. Just working, running the gym and doing what we love doing, behavioral science,
Yep.
sharing our experience and learning more and more every day. How about you?
It's been, quite busy. Got a lot going on in life, obviously. Just, around family, my daughter and whatnot, and obviously a lot of men that I'm coaching at the moment and helping them to transform their lives.
Amazing, amazing, Mark. For those of you who don't know, Mark's and I met through a coaching course that we did together because we're always trying to upskill ourselves with all these behavioral science, with all these timeline therapy and all these other modalities and other skills that we study uh, to put up our sleeves. But in doing so, Mark's gone and produced his own program, and he's been empowering so many men with his confidence coaching for men. Mark, can you tell our audience a little bit about your journey growing up, what you did, where you went to school or something like that? Or
Yeah, yeah.
before you get into all this coaching and what you're doing now, and then we'll talk about what you're doing now. I'll ask you about that.
Yeah, no problem. Well, yeah, Mark, I grew up in Sydney. I now live in North Queensland. But I had a really good childhood, had a really good caring family unit. Had, mum, dad, and my sister, and the dog and cat and bird and everything else in the family. And I loved my life. I had obviously at school, I had friends. I excelled at sports. I've represented the state in rugby union. I did quite well at athletics. So I was one of those probably more of a sporty type child. I still did all right, in the classroom and whatnot. I went to Oak Hill College in high school, which is a big rugby union school. I obviously played rugby union through there, and I saw myself obviously through that. I then went on to complete a trade. So I became a carpenter by trade straight out of school. Obtained my carpentry certification. Also moved on to become a licensed builder at that time, with the training. And it was around that point in my life, I had a little bit of not so much uncertainty, but I wanted a bit more variety in life. I ended up in the military. I served numerous years in the Navy. That was a lot of fun. Taught me a lot about discipline, integrity, loyalty, and a lot of hard work and just, evolving into the person. It was all part of my journey and becoming the man, that I was to become. And, I spent a number of years in the military before I, decided to move on from that. And, I had a plan in place when I left the military. I did towards the end of the military there, I did sort of hit a few lows in life. I've suffered with addiction. So, I'm actively in recovery. I don't sort of divulge too much into that. That was part of my journey. I have hit rock bottom. I have lost everything. And it led me out, to being destitute, homeless, sort of, that real rock bottom where, you've lost absolutely everything. And I lost myself, and through that process, I rebuilt myself. I did what I need to do. I did the recovery type thing for numerous years. I still follow that now, obviously, but I just did that lot of hard work on myself to get myself back up to being a responsible member of society. And in doing that, I was able to then transform. And that's during that time as well. My daughter was born, which was something I truly cherish in my life. I wasn't together with her mother, and that set the tone for another period of growth, for me as a man. And I was not given access to my daughter and whatnot, so that led on to I ended up in the family court for 10 years, fighting. I had limited time with my daughter, but fighting for access to her, and in that time, I become accustomed or got introduced, to a lot of behavioral sciences and life coaching and personal development. And I really threw myself all in, on that. And, I attended courses and seminars, I did a lot of Tony Robbins. I was really, really engulfed, like I was really, really drawn to that side of things. And, that helped me to get to that next level in life, because I'm someone who, I'm wired to, I'm very systematic. I haven't been in the military, for numerous years as well. But on doing that, if I, there's a process to something, I'm able to follow that. And, I just took the next right step. I did the next right thing. I, totally threw myself all in. I've done numerous, like I said before, countless personal development courses, all different aspects of it. I've done training to get into the coaching space as well. Part of that got numerous, certifications as such, but it was that life experience that has got me to where I am today, and that experience of sharing my story of where I've been and where I'm actually going and where I'm heading. And I faced a lot of challenges in life, especially like going through the family court stage. I had copped a lot of kicks in the guts. I had to overcome a lot of, a lot of lies and, accusations and stuff that, I don't wish upon on anyone. And so many times I just felt like giving up. I just felt like, what, system isn't working. I'm not working, and you just get to that stage where you want to give up. But I kept going. I kept stepping up. I had a really, really supportive parents who helped me through that process as well. Obviously I had a pretty good legal team as such. And, over the years, I kept getting kicked down, and I just got back up. I got back up. I did the next right thing. The limited time I have with my daughter, I, set myself up to be the very best father I could be a role model. I never sort of said, your mother's this or that. I didn't buy into all that type of stuff. And, I was able to build up a really, really strong resilience. I was able to really, just dig in deep and just gain this warrior strength that just kept pushing me through. And, after years and years and years of fighting, obviously, I've got custody of my daughter. I've got, full sole custody of my daughter. She lives with me now. She's been living with me since 2022. So we're also, this is still a learning curve for us. We're still learning to have that sort of father-daughter relationship, and I continue to keep doing the work I'm doing, and continue to, my daughter inspires me. Her mother passed away a few years ago, and then I had the custody battle against the grandparents, obviously, to obviously get access to her. But just the strength that this little girl has is what drives me every day. Doesn't matter what you're going through. The men that I work with, they're able to overcome any obstacles that happen. I'm able to overcome any obstacles. And over the last, probably 5 or 6 years, I've got more and more into the coaching, and I've found my passion and, my niche of helping men with their confidence. I was someone who lacked a lot of confidence, growing up as well. Wasn't sure why. It's probably a lot of shame was coming up through my life, that, not being able to deal with negative emotions, having that self-doubt about myself, even though I was, anything I sort of put my mind to, I achieved it, but I still had that, that self-doubt there, and I sabotaged, I did that with my addiction. I've sabotaged, relationships. I've been there and done a lot of it. And that's, what drew me to being in the niche that I'm in now, helping men to break the cycle of self-doubt, break the cycle of self-sabotage, rebuild belief and reclaim their power, because that's exactly what I did. Reclaim my power to live a life that, I truly desire. And, that's, in my little saying there, it's, help men break the cycles of self-doubt and self-sabotage, to rebuild belief, reclaim their power, and live a life that sets their soul on fire. And that's where I'm at, so I've come from those depths, and I've got myself up to this level where, I have a strong passion. I have a strong, love. I love my life. I love myself, and, just every day just gets better and better and better. So that's, and that's what's led me to today. My daughter and I moved up here to North Queensland about 15 months ago, just for basically a fresh start. My parents moved up here, a year and a bit prior, but, just our lives have totally transformed since we've been up here.
It's a pretty powerful share you share there, Mark, that self-distraction, that internal belief that keeps bringing you down. I know growing up, I can relate to a lot of what you say. You have this natural ability in doing things, whatever you do, and I gravitate to what you shared. I used to do a lot of things, whether it was sport, whether it was at school, with woodwork. I wasn't excelling in certain subjects because I just didn't gravitate to them. But the ones that I did enjoy doing, like history, like soccer, like PE, woodwork, metalwork, I did excel in those. And it's like that in life, as I left school, I felt the same as some of the things you were talking about. But it doesn't matter how good you are, you have this internal dialogue sometimes, that self-doubt. and
Yeah.
it's so detrimental to the human spirit. And so many men do that. Can you share with us a little bit about your view on that and what you believe is one of the most important thing to get over that?
Well, as men, we're taught to hide our emotions. We're taught to, not show weakness. We're meant to be this strong, valiant warrior type man who, nothing can get in front of, or, nothing can break us down and destroy us. And what it does is that self-doubt eats away at us on the inside. It eats away, eats away. Then, whether we're aware of it or not, we actually self-sabotage. It could be relationships, it could be career, could be family, it could be your health, your
Yeah,
finances. It's every area of life. And, you know, I guess, sometimes like the initial point is to just, acknowledge that and just, change your thought patterns, change the way you think. You've always got that little, I don't know about you guys, but I've always had that little, little voice in the back of your head going, you're a
everybody.
dickhead. You won't get this, you won't get that. And it's a matter of being able to, deal with do the inner work on you. And, a lot of that, commences or starts with getting real and getting honest with yourself, doing some work there, being able to get back to that root cause that has centered around, that anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, and shame that's actually just built up like a big Santa sack over the years, and you've carried it around with you for 15, 20, 30 years. And by the time you get to that stage, you've developed patterns. And until you actually do that work and be able to release those negative emotions and to be able to, get back to that root cause and acknowledge, bang, it's happened there. And to be able to look down on that event or whatever, at a place of no emotion and stillness, and to be able to accept that, and then, realize, hey, it's not my fault, or it's not really anyone's fault. It's just that acknowledgement that, and being able to clear that negative emotion out of you.
That whole thing about people feeling that, carrying all that stuff on their back and going through those times, going through those moments, that internal dialogue that we spoke about. There's a thing going on the internet now where they talk about two famous, a professor and a scientist in Japan, who did this exercise with water. They got two bottles and filled them up with the same water. And what they did, they got all their students to talk affirmations, positive talk and negative talk. So they took one bottle and they spoke to the bottle with positive talk, like, you're so yummy, it tastes so good, it's the best water I've ever tasted, it's so purified, I feel so rejuvenated drinking you. And then they took the other bottle and they had the same students in the same classroom. They removed the other bottle that they spoke positively to, and they started talking negatively about, this is disgusting, it's dirty water, it tastes so bad, it's bad for my skin, it's bad for my health, I can't digest it, it's undrinkable, etc. And at the end, they took both bottles of water and they poured them under a microscope and they looked over it. And the one that they talked negatively about looked like it was curdled, had swirls in it. And the one that they talked positively about had looked so fine and smooth and clear. It was almost looking through glass. And it really is interesting when the human mind, and I'm not talking about that when you've got external dialogue and you've got like our internal dialogue, which our mind is ticking, as you said, over and over all the time. But it comes down to the way we entertain that dialogue and how we accommodate it. You can accommodate it in a positive way, or you can take no notice of that negative stuff and just move on. And unfortunately, some of us, or most of us, accommodate that negative dialogue too often. And we feed it, especially in our younger years when we don't know better. And as you said, become customized to carrying up all this luggage on our back, and it becomes normal. And it becomes like conditional. And unfortunately, we take it through life, and it's not until we get to about 50. And unless we do these studies on behavioral science, that we become educated and develop the necessary tools to unpack, take off layer by layer, and start living healthier, happy life. Mark, I'm really enjoying what you've got to share about your journey. I want you to share with our audience, if it's possible, to ask you what you really love about the great work that you do and what it is exactly that you do within your confidence coaching for men.
Well, what I do is obviously men will come to me. They've obviously connected with me on Facebook or seen some posts that I've done, or even some referrals and whatnot. And these men are they're down and out. They're lacking confidence. They're full of self-doubt. They're sabotaging their life. They're just totally lost. Is probably the way that I'd put it. And initially, the defenses will be up when I first chat to these men, and they'll be, oh yeah, no, I'm all right on this and all that. But once you start unpacking the layers a little bit, just with some simple questioning, the truth comes out. they're just that scared little boy. You know, and I know that because I've been there and been
So
in
many,
that.
so many
And
men are like that, aren't they? You see
yeah,
them on a football field, in a sporting arena, at work, your mates,
yeah.
yeah, I'm all right, I'm just going for a drink. Why are you going for a drink? What do you celebrate? No, no, I'm just going for a drink. But really, there's something more going on than just having a drink, trying to
Well, the
get.
drinking is just a symptom of it. You know what I mean? Whether that's could be gambling, it could be sex, it could be drugs. You know, there's a saying in there. You know that the substance that you use, whether it's the alcohol or drugs or whatever it is, just a symptom. Of the disease as such, which in effect at a root cause level is, I'm not okay, or being able to sort of look at yourself and telling yourself I'm not okay, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, and it takes a little bit of, a few sessions with these men before that belief starts to come up. Like we unpack and release a lot of that negative emotion. We release the limiting beliefs that have been holding them back as well. And once we got through that stage, I'm able to see like this big, huge shift, whether it be in body language, like they're more upright, their breathing, even just the tone and tonality, like of their skin and their face and whatnot. And then we go into a next stage there where where we instill some new values, some new goals, and integrate that into that new confident warrior, which in effect, I'm transforming them, I'm helping them to transform to become.
Mark, one of the key things that I feel I see with a lot of this coaching, mentoring in relations to behavioral science, and I keep coming back to the word behavioral science because it is exactly what it is. And what I see is a key foundation in mindfulness, mindful listening, mindful of your environment, mindful of your existence, what you stand for, and what is around you. And one of the things that I truly believe I learned and what really drew me into studying this and I'm so fascinated about is obviously improving the quality of my life. But in doing so, it's allowed me to be more and more mindful. And I've got, like every other man, like everybody else, everybody's got some ways to go. We've all got some hiccups where we've brought up and there was some, whether it be a childhood need that wasn't met, or whether it would be a trauma from something that wasn't met, or an experience that you just had a hiccup with and you consistently struggle with. Everybody's got something. But I do believe that this mindfulness over time consistently develops, and you're mindful of the way you communicate with people, you're mindful of the way you hold yourself. And even a couple of months ago I read something and I watched this guy talk about a book that he released, and one of the main key things that he was sharing about the book, and he said this book is basically about one particular thing. Anytime you get a chance to talk to someone, anytime you get to say hello to someone or bump into someone that you haven't seen, even someone that you spoke to yesterday, the next time you speak to them is another chance to build connection, build rapport, and strengthen your bond with that person. And that alone all comes down to having better mindfulness. And Mark, can you tell us what it is that you truly love about the work that you do? Because I know since I met you and we were doing these studies together and we were separated into different groups and we got chatting and we got talking about it and we were saying, look, when this is over, let's catch up and chat. Let's motivate each other. And now you're doing great things. You're doing your men's confidence coaching. I'm doing my own life retreat, my positive footprints retreat. I do my own lines in a circle retreat, my ignite the inner roar within, which I'll talk about later before we conclude this short Zoom. But what is it that you truly love about the work that you do?
I love seeing the transformation. I love seeing the transformation in men. Also, I get a kick out of it as well. Every time I'm coaching someone, I'm always learning about myself too. That's just because I've done the work in the past doesn't mean that I'm perfect or I'm far from it. And just seeing those like shackles or that that disbelief and that real self-doubt that men bottle up and hide and hold, and just seeing it unleashed and watching them physically, just being able to watch them unleash into this new confident, strong, resilient man. It's just, nothing excites me more. I'm getting a bit, with
So
it
look,
now,
can I say something,
and
Mark?
that's it.
I see
I
the
get that from you.
transformation in, I haven't seen you for a while. We've spoken on the phone, but I see the
Yeah,
transformation in you. Not as like there was anything like, I mean, only you know how bad it was. I don't.
yeah,
No one
yeah.
else knows. Only you know, right? So you're living inside your head. You're living inside your body. You've experienced anything, and you're entertaining whatever thoughts are coming in. But I've seen that. I see the transformation from when I met you up at the Stanford Plaza when we did those
Yeah.
different courses together, prac and masters and all that stuff. And obviously, you've done heaps of other stuff as well. We all have. We've all done
Yeah.
hypnotherapy and breath work and all the other stuff. But you can see the transformation. You can feel the energy. It's radiating through you in the way you talk and how you present yourself. And I'm not saying it was bad back then, but you can just see this involvement. It's almost like a flower growing and it's springing out of the ground,
Thanks, mate. Yeah, but that's one of the, I think, repetition as well. Repetition, helps to build upon it. Just because you do something once doesn't mean, yep, I'm going to be great. I'm going to be perfect. What they say, repetition is the mother of skill or whatever it is. So just repeatedly do it. I've gone back and done courses again and again and again. You
I think
know,
they say
yeah,
teach, rehearse, repeat, and
that's
then
it.
it's something like that. I don't know, but
Yeah,
everybody's got a different philosophy of saying it.
yeah,
But it is the mother of everything, and the more consistent you become with it, it becomes part of your mentor. I know back in the day, I'll give you an example. Like back in America, you go to areas where people say, "Thank you, sir," "Yes, ma'am," and today you don't hear that. But over years, when you've been brought up to in a family that communicates that way. My wife comes from an African American background, so yes, ma'am, thank you, ma'am, yes, sir. That's common. You hear that. It usually comes from the South. Today, you don't hear that because
yeah,
most don't have any system in place or any. And I'm not trying to get really formal or anything, but this people are disconnected with communicating. You can't even get a group of family to sit down at a table today and have dinner together.
yeah. Totally agree. Yeah, it's a new generation, and we've got these little devices now as well, which are probably the biggest killer. They isolate you from everyone else. Whilst they also serve a good purpose, but in effect, they're taking away that face-to-face communication and the skills associated with that. Especially with the younger generation coming through.
I want to touch on something, Mark, that I think you'd be interested in. I know you know a lot about, um, and it is men over 50. And I'm specifically targeting that group when I'm talking about this. And the reason I'm targeting that group is I'm going to talk about withdrawal symptoms. Now, recently, I've been talking to a lot of people overseas for the past few years now about withdrawal symptoms for high top level athletes and specifically boxing, because that's my arena and that's what I studied for many years. I have my own gym and I train a lot of fighters. But when it comes to that time when a fighter must hang his gloves up, his tools up, and it's not just the fighter, it could be an executive that held a position in a huge company. He had a role that had him being given a lot of admiration, a lot of respect, a lot of attention. You earn a lot of money from it. And it could be an actor, it could be a singer, it could be a performer on stage, it could be a politician, it could be anybody. But I'm specifically referring to this age group and beyond. Because when it comes to retiring and moving on to the next part of your life, opening up a new chapter and closing the old, most men don't have the skill set, mindset, or the tools to facilitate into this transition. And as a result, what happens? They feel depressed, they're on a downer. It may even lead to substance abuse like drugs, alcohol, gambling, and at worst case scenario, even suicidal thoughts. Now, I know, Mark, you've dealt with a lot of people like that. I have too. And at any stage, and I'm speaking out loud, I think every male, every man has experienced some form of that experience that I've shared here over the past 2 minutes. And I think until we unpack and do the work and study and take action, and it means showing up each day, showing up and going through the hardship and understanding, oh, okay, this is just another time. It's another struggle. It's another bump on the road. And as you get off over one hurdle, it'll propel you for the next. And as you do, before you know it, you look back and you say, wow. And that's where resilience is developed. And at the same time, mindfulness, self-belief, confidence, and understanding that that's just part of life. Not every day is going to be peaches and cream. And I think as men, would you say we have to understand to embody that and not sit down and have a sulk and start entertaining all this negative dialogue? Because when we do, before you know it, we're heading the wrong way.
100%. Like they say, in your head, you're dead. As long as
Yeah.
you stay in your head and keep, playing over those same old stories, that same old bullshit that goes on, nothing changes if nothing changes. So you need to make that change. You need to, realize, yep, okay, enough is enough. Draw that line in the sand and do, what you need to do to get to that next level of where you want to be at.
Getting back to the Chinese professor and the scientist talking about words of affirmation and communication with the 2 bottles of water. Our body is made up of 70% water, and we're radiating energy frequencies through that. Now, if that exercise was done on bottles and the positive communication, positive affirmations, and that set to one bottle where that came out nice and crystal clear, and the negative communication came out corroded, curdled, like a whirlwind, mixed up water and that stuff like that, not as clear. It just goes to show that energy magnetic fields are affected in every possible way and communication. And the funny thing is, we spoke about this a few minutes ago. You got external communication and you got this internal dialogue, our internal communication, and we are the worst victims because we are so anxious to our own spirit by entertaining that dialogue and going down the wrong path,
100%.
destruction. But Mark, can you share something, some of our viewers, a little bit about what programs or any great events or things you've got coming up in your coaching?
Yep. Well, I run a 6-week confidence breakthrough program where it's 6 weeks, 6 sessions weekly. We just go through like those, those limiting beliefs, those negative emotions, get clear on, clearing them out, that root cause effect. Obviously instill some new goals, do a bit of goal activation, do a bit of values work and whatnot, and just really set you up to take your life to the next level. And then from that, I've got which I've just nearly rebuilt, is a 12-week, it's like a confidence rebuild program, which is, it's probably going to be named the Confident Warrior. And what that does is that takes men on a deeper, more transformational journey. So we go a bit deeper.
Can you tell me week by week what week one's about, what week two, like just in short, like what's week one about?
Well, week one's just okay. Week one would probably be just getting clear on, what's, trying to get to a root cause, like of what the understanding is of, how you're feeling about yourself, a little bit of a timeline of your life. Week two, in that 6-week program it'll be the release of @𝙤𝙬𝙪𝙜𝙠 fear. Week three is the release of the hurt, guilt, shame. Week 4, we'll go through some limiting beliefs. So, it just depends what limiting beliefs guys have. Might be I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'm fucking no good, all that type of stuff. So we'll get entangled in that. Week 5, I'll then go through and just do a check to see if there still is any, negative emotions filtering in the background, any, releasing of any negative beliefs that are still sort of filtering through there, and, clear out the rest of that garbage. In doing that as well, obviously set some new goals from that, and obviously some positive affirmations, some steps you can take to transform into that next stage. And week 6 is just an even further step on that. So, let's set a goal. Let's get clear on your vision, your purpose, your passion, do a bit of a goal activation to instill that into them, and just make sure that you leave, like, right, we've just done 6 weeks worth of work. Obviously, there's the option there to go to a 12-week program, which is where we go, in a more depth. I haven't really got the week by week on that because I sort of tailor it, that 12-week to the needs of each man that I'm coaching. Like there's some now that I've been doing a 12-week with that, need to do a lot of work on eliciting values or getting their structure right with, reorganizing those values to align with who they truly are. I've got some men who've got issues in relationships as well, where, I can do a quick, when I say quick, like a quick draw, sort of 1.5 to 2 hour session on relationships, which is, I come about that because I had a client come in with a problem. It was like, should I stay or should I go? So it was a really one session to sort of get fucking clear on, should I stay or should I go, with this relationship. Just gives a bit of clarity around that and breaks down, the patterns that they've got, and from all that actually comes out that, they're feeling unworthy, they're feeling, distrustful, they're lacking confidence and all that type of stuff. So it's sort of all intertwined within one another. Like there's that 6-week, obviously they want to go a bit deeper, the 12-week. If they're a bit unsure in the lead up to that, we can do that relationship one. And then, obviously from that, I can go into a 6 or 12-month mentoring where it's sort of like a fortnightly or week by week, depending on how we work it with them. Obviously things pop up from time to time. So, we'll release certain negative patterns. They might need some, direction or some, re-goal activating or things like that. So I tend to, the 6-week program is very sort of systematic. The 12-week leading up into the 6 and 12-month mentoring, I can sort of get a guess from that first session or two to see where we need to head at, what they need that extra bit of work on, and, obviously to be able to skyrocket them to where they want to be just to close that gap.
It sounds like a really good program you've got running there. Obviously, they say all coaches learn and teach from experience, and you've got so much experience from what you've shared with me in person and in tonight's short Zoom. Mark, I know you're doing some amazing stuff, and I'm so happy for you, and it's so great to catch up with you. I would love to catch up maybe 3 months or something down the track and talk about
Yep.
more things, and we can just touch base and share
Yeah.
ideas and stuff like that. But if any of our viewers want to learn a little bit more and want to get in contact with you and maybe do some work with you, how do they reach you? What's your Instagram, your Facebook, or website, or
Yep.
any email that they could contact you on?
Well, my Facebook is obviously Mark Vaughan, so it's MARK-Vaughan, VAUGHAN. On my actual page there's a little bit of a write-up, and there'll be a link there to click. So, even if you just want to send me a message or a friend request, happy to do that. There is a little link to book a free call, which is a free 30-minute quantum strategy call where we can just have a chat, see where you're at, show you how I could help and how I can close the gap, and then, leave it in your hands about whether you want to move on to that next stage. My Instagram handle is It's Mark Vaughan. Also, I've got a Facebook business page, which is Mark Vaughan, Recovering Excellence Coaching. Or you can contact me on my email address, which is mark@recoveringexcellence.com.
Amazing. There you go, everyone. Great to catch up and talk to Mark, and Mark sharing some of his experiences and his journey tonight. Before we conclude tonight's session, I just wanted to share with you and finish off on a really important note. Men's Mental Health Week is about to arrive on the 7th of June to the 14th of June. And in honor of Men's Mental Health Week, we are running a free retreat for men on June the 7th, which is a Saturday morning, which runs for about 4.5 hours right here in beautiful Bondi Beach. Now, this short retreat will start and commence just before sunrise on the beach with human movement, yoga, breathwork, and meditation. This will be followed by a functional training session, boxing sessions up at the iconic Bondi Boxing Gym with myself. And when that finishes, we'll be fed beautiful meals and acai bowls, detoxing smoothies, and healthy meals from the chefs from Up South Cafe and food from Timpin Bakery on Bondi Road. After the meal, we'll be going through some empowering motivational sessions, vision sessions, and neural transformation sessions, where I'll get a chance to talk to you all about your submodalities, your internal representation, your building blocks, which set you up for how you map your view, your own very view of the world, how you become customized, how you think, you act, and you act on certain situations based upon your cognitive bias in your cognitive thinking in making rational and irrational decisions. It's going to be an amazing, great morning. When that concludes, we're going to head up and finish this great half day with a plunge at Nimbus Wellness Studios with an ice bath. Everybody will be motivated, spurred on in taking a plunge, and then we will conclude with a delicious acai bowl. Now, if you want to learn more about this retreat, which is absolutely free, I've only got 2 more spots available. Shoot us an email at ymvhealthandwellness@hotmail.com, or feel free to call me on 0402 622 662. You can also Facebook me at Maydad Ronan's Coaching. Apart from that, it's great catching up with you, Mark, and
You too,
learning
man.
about your journey and just catching up and talking again.
Yeah, great since we moved away.
It sure has been so quick. And, I'm still coaching Luke. He comes in and trains with me for boxing.
See that? Yeah.
He's doing really good. And, it's great to see that we've all gone our separate ways. It's not exactly neural transformation therapy. For me, it's more an awareness therapy. And that's where I've sort of moved and called it. It's more a neural awareness programming. And I'm trying to educate people about rewiring their brain and programming them in with different views, and obviously just sharing my thoughts. And if they're keen to take them on board and they can align with that view, and great, it feeds them well and it serves its purpose, great. And if not, then there's other ways, because there's so many ways to skid the cat. And with behavioral science, it really is different strokes for different folks, isn't it, Mark?
100%. Yep.
Mark, great catching up with you. To everybody at home, have an amazing evening from Mark and I. Take care. And don't forget, next week, I'm catching up with another great athlete, a great bloke, Craig Fields, who used to play for the Rabbitohs, rugby league for the Rabbitohs, South Sydney Rabbitohs, and used to play for Manly, and also used to play for the Balmain Tigers. Craig and I are top mates. We grew up together, and he disappeared and became a professional rugby player. I went on and did my boxing, but we've always supported each other and commended each other for what we're doing. He's now doing some great work, motivational talking and podcasts with other men on mental health and positive coaching. And we'll be catching up with him next Monday night, 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Time. So if you want to tune in and catch us, have a chat to him and say hello, we'll see you next Monday night. Apart from that, from Mark and I, have a good evening, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.